So I've received a number of review copies for indie visual novels since I started up this channel, something that's rather impressive since my channel is pretty darn tiny. That being said, I have reviewed almost none of them because, to be frank, most of them weren't particularly good, and I think it's pretty mean-spirited to mock new devs. Today I'll be reviewing one of the few VNs I got a review copy for that is actually quite well done. Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce Cursed Sight. Cursed Sight is a short 3 to 4 hour VN set in a medieval East Asian looking country. It follows Guy, a young boy who is sold to a temple by his parents. There, in his role as a servant, he meets Mion, the treasure of a nation, a young girl who has eyes that will kill anyone who looks into them, and the ability to change the future through rituals. He also meets Sasha, a dancer at the temple who acts as a motherly figure for both of these children. We then follow Guy's life as he grows into a young adult and his blossoming relationship with Mion. For those who are wondering, yes, there are some time skips, but they're reasonably well done compared to, I don't know, Sword Art Online or something of that ilk. One of the first things you'll notice about Cursed Sight when you start reading it is that it's beautiful. Both the backgrounds and character art look great, and they give you a good feel for the setting of the story. The background music also really stands out. I rarely talk about music in VNs because most of the time it just isn't all that notable, but Cursed Sight has a soundtrack that not only does a great job setting the mood for the story, but is also enjoyable to listen to on its own. Quite frankly, if the soundtrack for the game was released separately, I would buy it. Oh, wait, it is for sale. Quick correction. The soundtrack is good enough that I went out and bought it. Anyways, now that I've waxed poetic about how the VN looks and sounds, I should probably talk a bit more about the strengths of the actual story. Welp, to be succinct, it's really sad. Not the whole time, mind you, that would just be depressing, but it's these poignant moments that just bring all the feels so strongly. It brought tears to my eyes at a couple of points, and there aren't that many stories that have done that. Also, to its full credit, unlike some stories that have moments that are not only sad but also rage-inducing, the tragic moments of this story feel well explained and, well, necessary. Generally, I can say that the story of Cursed Sight was fully satisfying, which is pretty darn good considering it's about the 10th of the length of the average VN I've read. I don't usually like short stories, but this one had enough to draw me in, wrap me up in it, and when I came to the end of the story, I felt a certain sense of loss when I knew it was over. I know this story didn't exactly end in a way that would leave room for a sequel, but I still want more. So as positive as I just was about the story, I do have a couple of problems with it. The foremost is that the dialogue occasionally felt amateurish. I can't put my finger on the exact reason, but there were some moments where the dialogue just felt like something out of a fanfic more so than a professional work, and others where the protagonist's internal monologues were just plain silly. Another issue I had was with the pacing. The first half hour or so of the game was very slowly paced in contrast to the latter half of the game, where the development for some of the new characters ended up being quite rushed. Actually, all in all, I would have liked to see more development for pretty much every character other than our protagonist. Possibly as a result of the short length of the story, few of the characters actually got as much screen time as they needed to be fully fleshed out. Lastly, like many indie visual novels, the characters in this story don't have voice acting. It's perfectly understandable given the budget this VN was probably produced on, but the lack of voices really does hurt the character's ability to express emotions. Quite frankly, I was really impressed with this game, and I would highly recommend it to anyone who's into Nakiche, or in other words, games that make you cry like Clanad, and doesn't mind a slightly shorter story length. The quality of writing isn't quite at the level of a good Japanese title like Fate Stay Night, Little Busters, or Crosaya, but it still does a great job with storytelling, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. If you've already read this series and are looking for something similar, I would recommend Key's Air, which, while having a less than satisfying ending, does have quite a few similarities to Cursed Sight and is generally very well written. Anyways, with that said, I'm done my review. Thanks for listening. Cheers!